Well, we have a number of different greetings that we use. Whoop, that's not supposed to be there yet. We have a number of greetings that we use for each other. And when we say hello, normally, you say hello to someone. Hey, how are you? Hello. And sometimes you might hear a response, how are you doing? Good. Great. Fine. Yep. I don't know what your response. You just might say, yeah, everything's going okay. Very rarely do you hear someone's not good, right? Because people know it's kind of something, it's just an expression that we use quickly, kind of saying hello. But when you say, how are you doing? But sometimes you hear someone say, living the dream, right? Have you ever heard someone saying that? Living the dream. And living the dream is an expression that we use. And I guess what the dream is just means that you're enjoying life. At one time in history, going back, I think, into the 40s and 50s in North America, living the American dream was something you would have heard of, seen on television or TV shows. And it included a house in the suburbs with a white picket fence that represented, and it was the type of fence was like short little white picket fence. Like, why would they want a fence like that? It doesn't really keep people out. You step over top of it, and that's the point. The point is that you're living in safety and peace, and you can put a little decorative fence that you don't need a big one. And you've got a nice house and a car and a nice yard, and it included maybe a family with 2 kids, maybe a boy and a girl, and maybe a dog. And so, you've seen pictures, and, I went backwards, and I think I stopped the projection there, guys. There we go. So you have these pictures of your little house and your white picket fence and your family that's happy. And, that was the American dream going back in history. And now the dream, maybe, those things have changed, right? Maybe a lot of people, there's affluence and money is usually a part of that dream. But a lot of people now, we dream of staying healthy and young and being in good shape. And if you look at the cosmetic industry, they're projecting that the market will be a $582 billion market in a few years from now. It's crazy to imagine, well, you don't even have to imagine, it's crazy to think of how much money we spend on the industry of cosmetics and our youth and our health. This individual, Brian Johnson, some of you may have seen him. Anybody familiar with this face? Maybe you've seen him on being interviewed on television. Well, there was just an article on CBC about him. I've seen him a few times now. He's 46 years old, and he considered himself the most measured man in history, in the world. He's partaking in an experiment to delay aging and extend his life. He will tell you right now, according to all the measurements, that he's aging slower than the average 10-year-old. And so part of what he does, he's got a vegan-based diet, less than 2,000 calories a day. He stops eating at noon. He's in bed at 8:30 every night, up at 5:30 a.m. every morning. He's tried blood transfusions. He did one with his 17-year-old son to see if that works. He's trying a myriad of supplements and tests, and he works out vigorously throughout the day. And so he's able to do this. But that's his life. He says he feels great. He's never felt better. You think of all the effort that he puts into it. Now, he's extremely wealthy, so he can just focus on that. He doesn't have to go to work. This is what he's doing in life right now. But the point is, how many of us are spending so much time on maybe our health or our dreams, or, trying to get what we think is going to be the living the dream? And the reality is, no matter what you work toward, no matter how much he spends trying to stop aging and what we can do to stop aging, you could freeze aging and make so slow you extend your life by hundreds of years. You might even get to the age of Methuselah, 969 years. But where's Methuselah today? He's dead. And the person who spends so much time on exercise and trying to stay young, I'm not saying that's wrong, by the way. Take care of ourselves, that's good. God wants to take care of ourselves. But when that's all your focus is on, and you soon realize when you're at the end of your days and you look back at your life and you're like, what did I accomplish? Or the person that spends so much time focusing on their money, on their possessions, on their health, only to find out tomorrow that they passed away, they choked on olive in their salad or whatever. I mean, you can't stop death. Death is inevitable. Death is a part of what God committed to us because of our sin. Right back in the beginning of the story, very beginning of your Bible, story of Adam and Eve, and death is there as a part of that story, where you made the wrong choice. You've sinned. You can no longer live forever and eat from the tree of life. That's a part of that story. The point is that you'll now face death. The wisest man, Solomon, even Solomon wrote, "So remember your Creator in the days of your youth, before adversity comes, or before you get old, before the days approach when you'll say, I have no delight in them." You know what? There's not a lot of delight. As you get older, there's a lot of problems. I'm learning that every single day, right? There's a lot of blessings, too, with the wisdom and the closer you get to your Lord. But the reality is, it doesn't matter how young or old you are. Jesus could come back right in a few minutes, right now. It could happen. Jesus warned people that even if you extend your life, there is a day coming when the end will come. Oh, Solomon reminds us, the dust returns to the earth and the spirit returns to God who gave it. And Jesus reminds people, be on your guard. That day will come unexpectedly like a trap. You make sure your minds aren't dulled from carousing and drunkenness or the worries of life. The worries of life have changed. It's not, am I going to have shelter or food? It's, am I going to have enough money to go on that vacation next week? Or am I going to be able to do my, sometimes the worries of life, all these things we worked so hard toward, they can distract us from what's the reality that's out there. Is that death or the return of Jesus will come at any time. So be on alert at all times. The Apostle Paul, he understood. He understood what life was about. You see, our life isn't just about working and provide food and shelter. That's what we do to survive. And some of us, we go too far and we spend so much time, but it's not just about becoming a Christian either. That is what it's about, but it's not the end of it. It's not about, I need to find God, and when I find God, it's over. No. It's not like we're zapped away when you become a Christian. When you become a Christian, your job is not to, fortify yourselves in a commune or a village or to go out and kill others. None of that stuff. It's not about living with a secret gift that now you know and you tuck it away in your pocket. When you come to know God and you come to know what life is about, it's about going into the world, living in the world, but different from the world. We are to be in the world as a light. We are to be in the world representing Jesus. That's what our lives are about. And so with all those other things we do to survive, be careful that our walk and our dreams, Jesus says you cannot serve two masters. You got to choose God or money. And by the way, you don't serve money. I've never seen anyone worship a piece of paper. Well, or I guess digitally. Now I don't know what that would look like. But people don't. He's saying you can't serve your own desires and God's desires at the same time. You have to choose. And so be careful how much time we spend walking down that road, needs versus wants, the wants road, versus the needs to walk down the road following Jesus. We live in the world, not of the world. We live to make the message attractive. We live to show God's love to others. And we also live to get the warning out to others that there is a day that will come. An end is coming. Whether it's death or whether it's the return of our Lord, there is an end in sight. We think sometimes life is like a roller coaster ride. And, as we get near the end of our days, we think the ride's quickly ending. But the reality is that ride could end at any time. And Paul has a clear vision of this. And so Paul would say, for me, to live is Christ. As long as I'm alive, he says, he's in jail. He's in prison right now. He could be killed. He says, if I live on in the flesh, if I survive, this means fruitful labor. fruitful work for the Lord. But, he says, I don't know which one I should choose. I'm torn. It's torn between the two because he says, I long to depart to be with Christ, which is far better. This is a man who was taken up to paradise. This is a man who spoke directly with Jesus. This is a man who had insight and wisdom about the things to come that none of us have even seen. And, we get little hints of it. We haven't seen what Paul's seen or known the things Paul's known to the degree he's done it. And he says it is far better. But he also knows that he can glorify God as long as he's alive. While he's alive in the flesh, there's a lot of things he can do that he can't do when he's not here. So he's got a job and he says, I'm torn, but to remain in the flesh is more necessary for you. You can help other people. And so Jesus, he says he's persuaded that he will remain. Paul was a representative for Jesus, and that's what we are. We're Jesus' representatives. We're his prayer warriors. We're his servants to go out in the world. Who's going to help and who's going to do the things that the world normally doesn't do? Some people do that stuff, but a lot of the things, there's a lot of good that's been done in the name of Jesus that most people wouldn't do. We are the light in the darkness, the guides. We found the way through the maze of life. And we go back to the beginning. We don't just see the exit and say, yes, I made it. Jesus sends us back in. Go. Bring your brothers and sisters. Go find the others who are lost. You go back into that maze to go and find people and say, I know the way. Follow me. Jesus showed me the way, and I'll show you the way. We're equippers. We equip the church for works of service. We help one another. Have you ever been rock climbing? I know I went rock climbing. Probably my first time was like about 6 months ago or maybe a year ago. Serious. I went at one time at like a little fair. You just go up. That wasn't the same thing. When I went to the rock climbing club, man, they take it serious. Like before you go, you have to take a little tutorial. You have to make sure you check off and sign your name here and listen to everything that's being said. Know how to work the harness system and I went with a few others in here. We got to go. And so someone would help us hook up properly. And I'll tell you what, the first time up there, the higher you get, you're like, is this really going to hold? And I remember that I went pretty high. And I'm coming down. And I decided I was going to climb down. He's like, just let go. You'll be okay. Trust the equipment. It's like, I don't. So I'm trying to climb down, and eventually I'm like, my arms are shaking. And I just had to let go. I had to trust. After that first jump down, every other one, that was fun. I just climb up, whee, and you go down, right? It's fun. But the guide had to be there. Even the brothers here with me. Jamie, it's fine. I didn't take it was the guy who taught me, gave me the course. He was walking around. He came to the bottom and said, it'll be fine. And that's when I let go. Not that I didn't believe my brothers, but that guy, he was there a lot more. He's seen a lot of it. And he knew it would be okay, and that just gave me that little assurance. We're the guides. We're Jesus' hands and his feet. He's the body, the church. He's the head of the body. The church is the body, and he sends us back out into the world. He doesn't say, okay, now that you come to know me, come with me. Forget about the world. I'll take you away from there. He trained up those apostles, and he sent them back out into the maze, into the storm, into the challenges of life, and it was not easy for those guys. We did a little study Wednesday nights about how they died. They were crucified, beheaded. They had a hard time, but they never gave up because they knew their mission. Do we know our mission? Are we focused? It's so easy to get distracted. It's so easy to forget who we are. Therefore, we are ambassadors for Christ, since God is making his appeal to the world through us. He uses us to talk to the world. There is beauty in this design. And so he sends us out there to work together. You are the body of Christ. And he gives all these, he appoints apostles and prophets and teachers. And Paul says this in Corinthians and again in Ephesians. Apostles and prophets, evangelists, to equip the saints for works of service, of ministry, to build the body, and to save people who are lost in the world. That's why Jesus came. And so Jesus wants us not to focus on our own dream, what the world says, the American dream. That should not be the direction we're going. If we get that, that's okay, but that should not be what our life's focus and goal is. Our life's focus and goal is to follow Jesus. And that might mean giving up our dreams. Maybe some have gone to prison. Some have given up their lives. Jesus expects us to be willing to take up our cross and follow him. And if that doesn't mean sometimes having to give up dreams and visions, and you're trusting God when you give up your dreams on earth, you're trusting God that he will fulfill even greater things when your life on earth is done. And that's exactly what the Apostle Paul said. I consider everything lost because of Christ. More than that, I also considered everything to be lost in the view of surpassing value of knowing Christ Jesus my Lord. And he talks about suffering, loss, and the challenges that he's faced. He considers it dung so that he may gain Christ. My goal is to know him in the power of his resurrection. You better believe that Jesus sees what we've given up, sees our sacrifice, and he's proud of us for representing him well, and he will reward us. And that's what Paul says in this letter to the Philippians. He's looking forward to his reward, and he says it is far better to be with Christ. And when Jesus is ready to take him, he'll get his reward. But until then, he can glorify God while he's here in the flesh. And that's our job, to glorify God while we're here in the flesh. And so Paul says, although I'm free, he becomes a slave to all people so that by all possible means he might save some. You can't save the world, but you can try to save as many as possible. There's a little parable that's told, an earthly parable that's told. Is called the parable of the lighthouse. Some of you may have heard this. It was actually written in 1953 by Dr. Theodore Weddell. And this is how the story goes. On a dangerous sea coast where shipwrecks often occur, there was once a crude little life-saving station, a little hut, and they only had one boat. But the people there, they were devoted. They kept a constant eye on the sea because they knew so many people were getting hurt and dying. With no thought for themselves, they went out day and night tirelessly searching for the lost. So many lives were saved that this little station became famous. Some of those who were saved, and even others, they wanted to be associated with it. Some of them became members themselves. Others, they just donated money to support the work. And so new boats were added. New crews were added on. And this little station grew. And some of those new members, though, they were unhappy with their little building. And so they said, we're going to build a nicer building. So they pooled their money and resources and they built this nicer building. It was more comfortable. They added some furniture now. They had room. And now the life-saving station became a popular place in the community for gathering. It was redecorated beautifully. And it was kind of like a little club. Less of the members were now interested in going to sea on life-saving missions, so they hired lifeboat crews to do the work. Well, about this time, there was a giant wreck off the coast. The hired crews brought in boatloads of new people they hadn't seen before. They were cold, half drowned, wet, dirty, and sick, bringing some sicknesses in. And the strangers often spoke. Some of them were just different language. They had a different way of life. And some of those people that were rescued wanted to join as well. And then the people who were there, they said, this club is getting a little messed up. This isn't what we were part of. This is what we signed up for. And so there was a meeting. At the next meeting, they decided, you know what? This is too unpleasant, bringing in these cold, wet, sick people, making us sick. And you know what? We're gonna stop doing that. We'll just keep it to the club part. And so half the members insisted on this, and one of the members, they said, but our primary purpose was on our sign. We're a life-saving station. And there was a split, and finally most of the people who voted no, we're not going to do it, and they said, if you want to start something else, you go build your own life-saving station. So they did. Some of the members went and started their own station, but soon the same thing happened to them. And if you visit the Seacoast today, you'll find a number of exclusive clubs along this coast. Shipwrecks are still frequent, but in those waters, most of the people have drowned. And when you hear this parable, it's obviously talking about the church. And the church's focus on the mission, but sometimes the focus can be forgotten. We get so comfortable, we find it difficult, and the comforts of life. Remember, Jesus talks about the seed that's planted, the worries of life or the comforts. And sometimes those things crowd in. We forget. We forget sometimes that our job isn't going to be easy. And so when you think about what Jesus did for you, in throwing you that life preserver when you're drowning in the sea of sin, and you remember what your job is now. It's not to cling on to that life preserver for life only. And that's what you're supposed to do. But it's not, ooh, I've been saved, thank you, Jesus, and you cling on and you wait for the rescue helicopter to come. Your job is to cling on to that life preserver and look around in the storms of that, and the rain and the raging winds of that storm, and to see other people whose hands are up who are drowning and dying in sin, and to swim over to them with that life preserver and to bring them on, because that preserver can hold any number of people. And that is what Jesus has called us to do. May God give us the strength and the vision to remember that we're not alone in this mission. That it's His mission and His purpose. For God so loved the world. He has not only saved us, but He sent us to save others through Jesus. Jesus died so the whole world could come back to the Lord. Let's stand as we sing our final hymn.